Go.
Hello and welcome to this week's video. So today we are going to be making gnocchi. So as always, there's a recipe pack for you and there's also visuals that we've attached to help you along the way with some pictures as well. So firstly, let's go through the ingredients. So I've already prepared everything that I've written in the pack. So this is my potato, 250 grams of hot potato that I've just scooped out just now. It is really important though that you weigh the potato once it's cooked. So we need 250 grams of cooked warm potato. If you've already done your jacket potatoes in advance, just pop them in the microwave or the oven until they get hot and it'll make our life much easier. 15 grams or so of cheddar cheese, 1 small egg, and some plain flour. We won't need all of this plain flour, so don't worry about weighing it. If you want, we can add it as we go along. Here I have my tomato sauce. Now I've already made this tomato sauce in advance, so this is exactly the same quantities as in your recipe pack. Now I've roasted this in the oven for maybe about 35 minutes, quite slow in my oven, and then I've blended it. You don't need to blend it, you can mash it up or you can serve it whole, depending on how you want it or how you've prepared it. But I've blended this up with a little bit of water and some seasoning, and that'd be plenty for me and probably 2 lunches. Water is on boiling as well, so we want to make sure everything's ready, a bit like the stir fry last week. So when we're ready to go, all our equipment and pans are where they need to be. I've got paper here, so a plate with some paper and a spoon, so we can lift out the gnocchi ready to drain onto this piece of paper before we serve them. Okay, so first things first, really, is we can start making the gnocchi dough. So once we've got to that stage, you can join me here. So potato, I'm going to get it out on my bench. Okay, so this is 250 grams, really important. You can use a masher or a fork. We're just going to mash this together. I don't want it to be like really fine. Doesn't matter if you have a little bit of a lump in there because it's nice texture, but just want to bring it all together. Much easier if you do this while it's still hot, so mine's already starting to cool down since I've been talking, so make sure your potatoes are nice and hot. Okay, all right, and then so that's fine for me, that's fine. See, it's not really smooth, that mashed potato, because it's going to have a bit of texture to it in my opinion. So we're going to add the small egg into there. Whoops. We're going to break this up. Make a little well, add our cheese, and then we can mix all of this bit together, okay? This is before we add the flour, so we can mix all this together, and then this will determine how much flour we need, okay? So you can use your hands, you can use a scraper if you find it easier, if you have one, just to mix it all together, and it should come together to a dough. Now it's going to be quite wet, so if you have a big egg, maybe just add a little bit of it, because this is quite wet, you see. But it's come together. And then with your flour, see, that's just 1 teaspoon first, and we'll see how that reacts, okay? Because don't go adding all of it in, because it'll be quite cakey. And it's important not to overwork your gnocchi dough. Otherwise it'd be quite stiff. So I reckon that is nearly there. I'm going to go with like a little ½ teaspoon, just to, don't want to commit too much to it. And you see it's starting to come together. Make sure I scrape all this in off my bench. Now also, if you have time, you would benefit from resting this in the fridge. You would definitely benefit from resting in the fridge. But I'm gonna make this fresh for you now. But if you have time, you can put it in the fridge in some cling film, just for about ½ an hour or so, just so it firms up and it'll be easier to roll out. Now, don't try and roll this all big bit out in one go. Chop it in half. And then a little bit of flour on your bench, just a little bit. We're just gonna roll it like a sausage. So roll it out like a sausage. Now I just remembered I haven't seasoned this. Now I might get away with it because the cheese is salty, but if you got to the same stage as me and you've forgotten to season it, we can season our water, okay? So it will cook and it will season it at the same time. Now I'm not pressing down really hard here, I'm just carefully rolling with a little bit of pressure. If we go too hard, it will squash and it will break, okay? If you need a little bit more flour on your bench, by all means do that so it doesn't stick. Now, that's a nice size for me. So what we can do now with a knife, if you have a knife or you have a plastic dough scraper, we're just going to chop, okay? So we're going to go just like this. And get nice little sizes. Doesn't matter if you want to go really, really small, for example, that doesn't matter, but just make sure they're all the same size. Because if you want, you could make different shapes. If you want to go really big, that's fine, but make sure they're all roughly the same size. So mine, hopefully, are roughly the same size. Don't need to be perfect about it. That one's a bit big, isn't it? But it would just help us down the line when they come to cook. Now, once you got to that stage, put them aside somewhere, maybe on the board with a little bit of flour, and then you can repeat the process with this one here. But I'm just going to show you half the dough. So I'm going to quickly wash my hands. Okay, so make sure our water's boiling. So I'm going to turn that water on to a nice high heat to bring it back to the boil. Make sure my sauce is nice and hot, which it definitely is. Now when we cook these gnocchi, we're going to pop them into boiling water, and once the boiling water is bubbling, the gnocchi will cook in that and they will rise and they'll float at the top when they're done, okay? So when we put them in, we're going to stir them once to make sure they don't sink and stick at the bottom, but it's really important that once they're in there, we just let them cook. Now they won't take long, at all. I'm going to salt my water. Quite a big pan of water, so I can be quite generous. Mix it in. So these gnocchi will probably take no more than a minute and a half, if that. Depends how big they are inside, but a really good indicator is when they start to come to the top. I'll wait for that to boil. We can probably roll the other one out in that time, can't we? Okay. Some of that. Yeah, so like I said, if you have time, you're more than welcome to pop it in the fridge and it will set up and it'll make your life a bit easier. But I'm going to roll this one out as well. 2 is quite big. Okay. I'm gently applying pressure in the middle, but then I'm also pushing that pressure out to the sides. So hopefully we get quite a nice even shape, okay? And then again, we just chop. You want this to be quite a hard cut. Don't want to like slowly do it because it won't cut, it will just break it, so bam. Okay. Okay, water's boiling. Water is now boiling, so do not put all of your gnocchi in at the same time, because they'd just be overcrowded. So we're going to do it in batches, okay? So I'm going to probably do half of this first. So maybe hold a few at a time. And then just carefully plop it in the water from a distance. Try not to splash it and then you get yourself any nasty burns. That should probably be enough for my first batch. Okay. And then we're going to give it one stir, just so it doesn't stick. And we're going to leave it. We're going to completely leave it where it is. I'm going to quickly wash my hands again. Leave it where it is, and then you'll see they'll start to float to the top, and that's an indicator that they're ready to come out of the water. So they're very, very nearly coming. I can see 1 or 2 of them dancing around. Still don't resist the temptation to put your spoon in there and start prodding them, because they're very delicate. They're very delicate, and if we overwork them in the early stage there, if we overwork them and put too much flour in, they'll start to fall apart and disintegrate in this process here, okay? So be really important just to be delicate as well with them. You'll be surprised at how quick it is to make it, so don't be worried if you've done it quicker than you imagined. So now they're just starting to dance around, just starting to come up to the top. Maybe 30 seconds more, if that. And then we're going to lift them out onto our piece of paper, drained, ready to go. And then we're going to serve them. If you want to cook more than one batch, not a problem. So we'd lift them out onto the paper to drain them, and then they can go onto another separate plate with a little bit of olive oil so they don't stick. If you wanted, you could put them back through the oven to roast them while they go hot, but these are going to come out now. Okay. If you wanted a little challenge as well, what you could do, what some people do, which is delicious, is instead of putting these on the paper, you put these straight into icy cold water, and that stops the cooking process. And then they go onto paper, and then you could pan fry them. You could pan fry them in a pan with a little bit of oil, and they go all crispy, so you get that crispy crunch on the outside and soft in the middle. But this is a really simple way to do it first. So that's them there. We've got our sauce over here. We can turn that off for now. Got our sauce nice and warm over here. You can plate this up like this. Do a little bit of sauce in the middle. Give that a little smear. Put that back over there. Lift it through your gnocchi. See the cheese coming out of that one, eh? A little gnocchi like that. Give it a little bit of black pepper. More cheese, a bit of parmesan. Look at that. And that's it. That's this week's dish. Okay, so really simple. This one, really quick, really simple. But the key is in the preparation of this one. So make sure that you have your jacket potato cooked. Make sure it's the right weight. If you want your sauce to be runnier, you have it runnier. If you want it to be thick, it can be thick. You could pan fry these. You could put them in the oven and bake them like a lasagna. That's really nice. But that is the simplest way for you to do it, and really quick and easy. Okay, so enjoy that dish this week, guys, and we will see you next week. Okay, goodbye.